Welcome to the Stats on Stats Pod, yeah.
All right, cool. Insert banter here. Hey, Matthew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. How are you all this wonderful Saturday morning?
Is good. It's all good vibes, actually. Yeah, and you don't. Okay, so we actually haven't met each other. So, like I said, I'm Jordan, and then let's go around. Tiffany, you want to pick it up?
Hi, Matthew. Yeah, I mean, I'm Tiffany. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say.
You're so funny.
It's great that you're here, though, to have a chat with us. So, really glad that you made it to hang out with us today.
Absolutely.
And hi, Matthew. I'm Andrew. I'm also here on the channel visiting today, and so excited to just hang out, vibe, and enjoy this conversation.
Jordan, Tiffany, Andrew, my pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you, Andrew. You missed your plug, dog. So he's a guest co-host. What do you like? What the plug? Insert plug here.
Hey, I'm also the guest co-host. This is my first time on Stats. We're doing podcasts. Hey, hey everybody. I'm Andrew Crotty. I'm one of the guest co-hosts today. I am a little bit background on me. I've been in cyber for just under 10 years. I am currently in the military as a cyber warrant officer with a cyber protection team 185. On the civilian side, when I'm not doing military cyber, I am a DHS contractor for the federal government, protecting our country from cyber threats and bad guys. And I have a fun little YouTube channel called Ginger Hacker, which I do a Breaking Into Cyber series. But I'm very excited to be on the channel today to help co-host and talk to Matthew about some awesome, fun cyber stuff.
Nice. He has a good podcasting voice. Good to have you here. All right. So, Matthew, before we officially get started and jump into the podcast, do you know what's about to happen before we ask the hard-hitting questions?
I hope that I'm about to join a vibe, but we'll see. No, not particularly.
Okay, that's cool. So over here, we like to play a game called That's My Jam 90s R&B Edition.
Uh-oh.
I love how you cue me up.
See, I got you.
90s R&B edition. Woo!
I got you. Okay. All right, so here are the rules. We are going to play four covers of 90s R&B songs. How's your knowledge?
Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Okay, so just like everybody else we interview, pretty much. Okay, cool. Perfect. All right, so you have until the end of the song to guess either the name of the song or the name of the artist. If you can guess both, it's a flex. Points are the same. You have, 2 guesses or 3?
I mean, you be giving hints, so I guess you can do as many as you want.
So you get 2 to 3 guesses to figure it out. Are you ready?
Oh, no, I'm not, but let's do it.
All right, Anthony, song number 1, please.
I guess it never was the way I thought it was. I say this only just because you never came to love. I guess it wasn't so. Guess that's just how the story goes.
That's a deep cut.
You
It
didn't dig my flow. You didn't dig my flow.
That's just how the story goes?
Actually, you know what? That was a good guess, and I appreciate you guessing, but no. You get 2 more.
Oh, man. I couldn't even begin to guess. I have no idea.
I mean, okay, I'm also going to put it out there that some people use ChatGPT, and we're not against it. But anyways, you can use
I'm
that
an
one for the
instructor.
next
How
song.
dare you?
All right, so the song, I actually didn't know that one either. I had to Google it while it was playing. It was Welcome by Maxwell. That was a deep cut. That was a deep cut.
Yeah, I didn't even know that one.
Yeah, it was. All right, song number 2.
Now that we
I know this
have
one.
come to be a brand new life I can see. Never thought you'd be a special part of me.
Let me record Anthony. He knows this
No,
one too.
baby. The reasons are because of you. I can go on and make it through. I can't even take my mind off loving you. And I wanna say,
All right, Matthew, any ideas?
Continue the process of riffing off of the lyrics itself because of you.
If we gonna go, she actually didn't hit the chorus today, did she? No, because he's not
no.
gonna guess it. He's not gonna guess it. Do you know who?
See, they're gonna hit. There we go.
Do you know? Nah, I'm gonna be like, do you know who Biggie Smalls used to date? Okay, so it's Love Like This by Faith Evans.
Faith Evans.
Yes, that one's not a deep cut. That one's very popular. Go listen to it later. All right, song number 3. We're off to a strong start. Don't worry.
baby, baby, I know.
She knows this.
Baby, I love you so. But you don't feel like I do. Tell me, what can I do? But I gotta be strong, girl. You did me wrong.
Oh, okay.
I thought we were down.
These must
Now
be
you say you
old.
want me, girl.
That's why she knows them.
Oh, make up your mind.
You don't know this one?
No,
I'm not gonna be here for long.
Anthony does.
I was started singing.
Oh man, I can't believe it.
I'm 0 for 3 for certain.
Have you ever seen that movie with the tornadoes?
Twister?
What in the?
She was
Right,
like, wow.
right. But like, if you were to change the ER to something,
Oh my god.
Past tense. What's
Right.
past tense?
Oh my gosh.
did you say it?
Was that
Twisted?
Was that twisted?
There we go.
Oh Lord. And she's still complaining about my 3 guesses.
I can appreciate him like trying though. Okay, we got one more song. Last song, song number 4.
It's Friday and I'm ready to swing. Pick up my girls and hit the party scene tonight. Oh, it's alright. So get up and let this funky mellow groove get you in the mood. 'Cause you know it's alright, yeah.
She should have kept going.
Keep on grooving.
Nah.
Let me see you, let me see you go.
It's definitely
we
Friday
should've-
by Rebecca Black.
Oh shoot. I feel like we should have started with this song as a bass line. If he ain't get this song, we should have just skipped the whole game. Well, this is you want to say who it is because you love her.
It is Aaliyah, Back and Forth.
Crickets? No, you got the. There we go. All right, cool. You got 1 out of 4. That's actually way better than most of your peers. So kudos to you on that.
Definitely
Congratulations.
got that one. Nailed it.
All right, let's go ahead and get into the reason people actually come here. So if it's your first time, welcome. If you already know the vibes, welcome back. I'm Jordan, aka Jay, aka the chosen one, aka Big Stepper. And I'm here with my co-hosts, 2 co-hosts today. Actually, we'll start off with you, Tiff.
I am Tiffany B, and as always, we're excited for everyone who is here joining in on this session of the Stats on Stats podcast. I am going to pass it over to our guest co-host for today.
Hey, everybody. My name's Andrew. I get to be the guest co-host. So excited to be here. And as I mentioned before, I already gave you my background. We're going to let this vibe and have a great time. I'm super excited.
Let's go. Let's get it.
Perfect. Now, if you don't know, this is a podcast where we get to talk to leaders in the IT, technology, cyberspaces. At this point, I feel like we just talk to everybody who has anything to do with digits, but we are going to let this gentleman tell everyone who he is, where he's from, or what he does in the tech space, and take it away.
Absolutely. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. My name's Matt Toussain. I ironically have a really similar background, I suppose, to Andrew over here. I actually used to teach the warrant officers at Fort Gordon while they were going through their cyber training. So very, very small little world. I imagine it was Fort Gordon for you, right, Andrew?
Yes, it was.
Yep. That, for those who don't know, is in a armpit area of Georgia. It's very, very sweaty out there, not necessarily most fun. but Atlanta's a lot nicer. I was in the Air Force as an officer for a while, especially when we first started coming up with the cyber forces, and I was one of the first classes actually out of the Air Force pipeline for training. After that, I went on the private sector, and I run a cybersecurity company now called Open Security. We do all types of cybersecurity services. We consult for some of the big Fortune 500 companies, and hopefully our objective is to prevent folks from getting hacked and to stop the bleeding before it actually happens. But on the other hand, sometimes we show up on the day after, the aftermath day, if you will, doing incident response as well. Those are always really interesting experiences because you never see one that works the exact same way as a previous one did. It's a little bit of a hair on fire moment, and I like to tell everyone, my job here is to stop the bleeding and to make sure that you're aware that this is going to be okay. It's not going to be fun, but it's going to be okay.
Awesome. Great. Well, I would love to, as we always try to do here, make sure that you give us a chance to talk about what sparked your interest in tech long before the DEF CONs and open security and, even the Air Force. What got you interested into tech?
I have a question first. I'm sorry. And definitely, obviously we have to answer that one, but I just, isn't James Brown, isn't James Brown from Augusta? Weren't we talking about Fort Gordon? Weren't we talking about Fort Gordon? Isn't James Brown from Augusta? Okay, whatever. Continue. He is, right?
South Carolina. Born South Carolina.
Damn. Okay, proceed.
Barneswell.
Okay, well.
Cut that out.
No, don't. Leave it.
This is live and pure and organic. Now, went to college in Emory's University Hospital, Midtown Atlanta.
So nothing about Augusta.
Nope.
Okay, well, back to the question that was really good.
Absolutely. Well, I have a really wild answer to it, actually. So what got me into cyber? It was never supposed to be this way. I saw this show when I was growing up, and I was absolutely hugely into it. It was called JAG, and you had all these Navy folks with their, pretty Navy whites. They were all lawyers in the military and those kind of things, and that was absolutely my heart's desire going into it. But the way you become a JAG in the military is you serve for 2 years in some other kind of field. And then after that, you take that experience that you've got and you use it to help represent and defend folks who are maybe going through a hard time, let's say. And so when I was going through the Air Force Academy, it's my alma mater, I picked Intel because that tends to be where you go if you're going to then move into JAG, just kind of normal. But they came up with this new thing called cybersecurity, and I was on that intercollegiate cybersecurity hacking team, just for funsies. I wasn't really going into cyber. That wasn't my objective, but I had to do something, right? And I just absolutely fell in love with it. I even got a scholarship to a 1 week spring break, college style class from a group called the Sands Institute. And at the time I lived in Alaska. And so I was basically going to Harry Potter it. All of my friends, they're going home. Me, it's too expensive to fly to Alaska. So I'm going to stay in the dorms. And they were like, you want to go to Florida for a week? We've got this scholarship. I'm like, yes, heck yes. Count me in. I went, fell absolutely in love with hacking and the cybersecurity stuff. And the rest is kind of history. My mother was very disappointed.
We've often heard that here. A number of people have come in and say, they're not necessarily prepared to be in tech realistically. But once you got in, can you tell us where that led you to? Just give us your story.
Absolutely. So I started, and then the military sends you off through training. That training happens in Mississippi. So I was in Mississippi for a little bit over a year, and then did a little bit of finishing school in Florida, and then it was off to San Antonio, Texas, where I was doing a bunch of work remotely with a lot of the operations that we were doing in, say, Afghanistan and also Syria at the time. Got to do some really cool stuff in the military. If you're familiar with the Paris bombings, the terrorist attack that happened a number of years back, they were doing communication with an app called Telegram. And one of the things that I was able to do on the military side is actually do some research and investigation and trying to hack in, if you will, to the application itself to see, if there's actually attack surface, if it's possible, if we can decrypt the messages that were being sent from folks back and forth. TLDR on that one, Telegram has its own really weird encryption. And whenever you see weird encryption that's rolled on its own by the developer, there's a mistake. There's guaranteed definitely going to be a mistake somewhere in there. We didn't end up finding the mistake, but I can tell you Telegram is a very weird application. But in the military, I got to do all kinds of really fun things like that. So I was a cyber battle planner for the Korean theater when we were doing the whole like Little Rocket Man, Kim Jong-un thing. So that was a little bit extra exciting. That was super fun. And I kind of left behind that career with a lot of really good stories to take away from that were just kind of fantastic because you don't get to do that type of stuff in the private sector.
I have a question, if I can jump in as co-host.
Fire away.
Matthew, growing into your own company is, I'd say, when it comes into breaking into cyber and kind of moving up the ranks, like some would call that like director, CISO, obviously owner of your own company, is a pretty big jump. What was maybe your path of trajectory to that? And what was like your most favorite part and what's been the most hardest part of running your own company?
Absolutely. That's a bit of an involved story too, ironically. So there's this thing in the military where if you go in the officer direction, they don't really want you to do anything. They want you to sit back and lead, make decisions, if you will, and that's it. And so I'd spent all this time for years at that point trying to get involved more directly in like the tactical operations of cybersecurity, doing the hacky stuff, hands on the keyboard, all of that type of thing. And they were moving me in a very different direction military-wise, all about planning and management and control, operations, those kind of things. And I wanted to keep my skills about as lean as possible. So I went to my commander at the time and I said, hey, look, can I do off-duty employment? And that's actually how Open Security was born. So it was actually born as a side project while I was in the military, so that I could kind of keep my my hands dirty while doing more of the leadership style stuff. And the way that it kind of exploded from there is I had a number of colleagues who were going through the exact same experience as me, and they looked over and they're like, hey, Matt, we want to do that too. That sounds like a lot of fun what you're doing over there versus, all of this project management stuff that we're doing here. Can we get involved? And so that's how I started to get, my first set of employees. And then when I left the military, I actually went to go work for Black Hills Information Security for a little while, followed by a company called Counterhack. They make a game called, what is it?
Backdoors and Breaches?
Backdoors and Breaches is from Black Hills. Yeah, it's a really, really fun game for incident response. Counterhack also makes a game called Net Wars. And so I was involved with them for a couple of years, but at the same time, I didn't really want to close down the company just because I'm out, gallivanting around the private sector doing fun stuff. And so in essence, what ended up happening is I hired a CEO for the company. We're managing it, and then we still had this thing going around while I was out, in the private sector doing some kind of standard work. And then I came back, and we've blown the company up ever since. I think it's been 10 years now in total time, but it seems like it was just yesterday because half of that was more of a part-time situation than it was really all in. But that's kind of how I fell into leadership in the company side. And I guess to bring it full scope, I started the company because I wanted to keep my hands dirty, and then I ended up getting everybody else's hands dirty while I was running a company and then doing leadership on both sides anyways. So it is a La Brea tar pit.
That's awesome. That's actually really cool. And I actually didn't know, like, on your Compo 1s or your active duty military, like, hey, I want to go make this part-time civilian job company while I'm doing this full-time Army thing. Is that cool? So actually really cool to know that. And I think that for those, I get a lot of folks from the active side that are still like in your 17 series, like, hey, like I'm trying to sharpen my skills, but we're doing a lot of project management. I might have to point them that direction. That's pretty sick.
Yeah, there's actually a couple companies that I'm aware of that had their roots start that way. So there's Open Security, of course, and then there's another company called BC Security, which effectively is the same kind of thing, but they did it on the Army side, primarily.
When you think back to your early days for Open Security, what are some maybe some challenges that you went through, and then how do they continue to impact you as an organization?
Absolutely. Yeah, starting a company is a vicious challenge cycle in and of itself, right? Because you've got a very small group of people, and those people need to do everything. That means marketing, that means business development, that means the actual work of, doing a penetration test, for example, or whatever the service it is that the, private sector organization is in need of. That can also wildly vary, right? Maybe they've got cloud technology, different type of service, maybe different type of expertise. Maybe they've got web applications, different type of expertise in trying to hack into those things as well. And so when you start off with a firm like this, effectively everyone needs to kind of be able to do everything at the same time all at once, and it never happens ideally. So we were early on, really in this heavily like vicious cycle between doing the work of the business and then building the business. And this is how I kind of fell out of doing the tactical work and then ended up being manager inside of my own business anyways, defeating the purpose, because in the end, what happened is we'd spend like a couple months maybe trying to get some work somewhere, to get some organization to say, hey, look, these untried group of folks, who maybe have some military background, we're going to let them on our environment, which can be a little bit antsy and terrifying for some organizations too. We trust them enough to do this, and we're going to give them the work. Okay, that might take a couple months to do. Then maybe we're working on the actual engagement for a month. During that month period, are we actually like spending the time to make sure that after that month is over, that we've got more work to kind of follow? And that really became a heavy problem. And I would say it still is for us to a certain degree. But at this point, we're bigger. We've got a whole sales team. And so like the business development cycle is one that is largely, knock on wood, largely out of my hands, which is a fantastic feeling. At our team meeting, because we are a remote company, remote first organization, but we bring the whole team together for a powwow every year. And so last year's one of the things that I got to get up and stand in front of everyone and say with a lot of pride is thank you all for making me irrelevant, at least when it comes to business development, because I never wanted to do it anyways. But I would say that that's probably one of the biggest, most vicious cycles in the startup community or startup world. And when you start to mature enough that that can be, I don't say like delegated, but where that burden is now shared amongst multiple members of the team, that's what success really starts to feel like.
That's fire. That's what, I have a question. So you said you didn't necessarily plan, you didn't necessarily grow up being like, I'm gonna be a cybersecurity dude. Like that wasn't necessarily the plan for you. So once you did kind of, get to a point where it was presented to you, what is it about cybersecurity that resonated with you that made you go, I'm about this, I'm about to dive in, I'm about to have a company, be an educator, do all the things? Like what resonated with you and what keeps you excited about it?
I love that question. Yeah, so cybersecurity really resonated with me for the same reason that law originally did. So like when you take the LSAT, there's a couple different components of it. And one of those is effectively logic puzzles. And my scores on logic puzzles were way higher than my scores on everything else because I like things where there's a strategic solution that you can deterministically put together, right? So you have a certain set of inputs and you always get the same output after the fact, given those same, inputs. And like coding, cybersecurity, development, all of this type of stuff is very deterministic in nature. Maybe this is a little bit less true these days with artificial intelligence. But the point is that you've got these problems that have discrete solutions. And for me, it's always just been a really good feeling to like get my head really deep in a problem and then navigate the way through that solution. And especially if I can build something that gets to last or get left behind. So it's a problem that's been solved now. And now it's the computer's job to continuously execute on that solution. Those kind of things, I love it. I absolutely love it. So one of the things that I do on my own is I do a lot of open source development. So that's effectively building projects for folks who are in the industry or maybe not in the industry, but maybe just want a tool to accomplish something. So one of the products that I've got that has the most users, I think we're at like 12,000 users or so now, is a tool that I created to help people study for certification exams in cybersecurity. So they might be taking a course with maybe the SANS Institute, or maybe they might be taking a course at a university or whatnot, and they want to create structured notes for the book itself. So sometimes these exams are open book, but if you've got, 1,200 pages of book material and you've got an hour-long exam, it's open book more in name than it is actual in reality, right? And so one of the things that this tool does is it lets you take notes, and as you're going through and studying, it'll build you an encyclopedia effectively for your material in your books. And I created a YouTube video about this where I was taking basically a certification exam and I was looking up every answer in the middle of the test. And I'm like, hey, look, this isn't free. You have to build out your notes and such. But if you study in this way, you can really come close to guaranteeing yourself success in your professional journey as you're building out your career in the future. And the reason why I wanted to build that, A, it helps people. That's cool. But B, that's a problem, right? That I was able to just directly understand, as in people want to study for these certification exams so that they can succeed in their career. That's a problem. And there's a computer solution that doesn't give it away for free by any means, but makes it much easier for you to have a direct path to study. I found for a lot of folks, one of the biggest problems was, how do you know when you're done studying, right? How do you know that you've studied enough and you're ready to take the exam? But if you've got a process that says, hey, look, this is how you structure your notes, and after you've done that, you've studied enough, go in and take the test. That gives a lot of folks extra confidence when they they have to sit and put pen and pencil to paper, if you will, if we even use pencils or paper anymore.
Coming to someone that has horrible test anxiety and I hate tests, that's fantastic. And I I think a lot of us in this field, like when folks come and talk to us about like prepping and taking time in to study and doing things like that, it's like finding that time to study and like put in the hours and put in the work. That's how you're really going to get the good feedback too for a lot of this learning. And you kind of hit the question I kind of wanted to go with next was when you have folks coming up to you or asking anyone here in this call actually like wanting to break into cyber, what advice do you usually give people to kind of get them interested, to kind of get their foot in the door, to get them in the right direction?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think I actually want to like bounce the question back to what the previous one was, right? So Jordan mentioned, how did this resonate with you? And I think that the way to get into almost any career field out there, but especially something that is like engineering or STEM focused, is to identify what resonates with you and then to pull that thread as much as you can. Because cybersecurity is a really large field. I'm actually consulting for an organization right now who's they want me to interview one of their new consultants to see if he's actually good at what he does. I already know the guy. He's fantastic. It's going to be great. But his focus is physical security. It's not really, digits. It's not really ones and zeros whatsoever. But there's still room for that aspect inside of the cybersecurity community and inside of the, the working group that we are. And we're trying to keep organizations as secure as possible, or show up after the fact to, clean up the mess if it, so comes to that. But what that effectively means is we're talking about physical security, incident response, security operations center work. Maybe you're a third-party consultant working for a primary organization. Maybe you're inside of that primary organization. Maybe your focus is, hey, look, I like data science, and so maybe my focus is on, let's say, vulnerability management, and maybe I want to do custom risk calculation of a given issue so that we can triage these things and say, hey, look, this is the number one most important thing for the organization. Now let's take that to the IT department and get them to patch it. That's another component of, how cybersecurity effectively interrelates with all of these functions. So I think the first thing to recognize is that there is a place for you. The next thing to kind of internally look to achieve is to find that resonance point, because there is a place for you. Where is the place that you are going to shine the best given what you yourself love? Now, at that point, the real question starts to become, okay, let's get that job. And I think getting the job can also be a huge challenge for folks. So how do you pad your resume? I recommend giving presentations at conferences. I know it can be terrifying, but every single time you do, that is a resume bullet right there. There is probably going to be a conference video related to that kind of thing. And then, the organization, if they want to have an idea of, can you communicate or can you speak to this field? Guess what? You got to make your own interview in slide form, perhaps, and then give that as a presentation in front of a large group of people. That can, of course, be, nerve-wracking for sure, but there's no easier interview than if you're asking your own questions and then giving the answers to a camera. And that's really potent. So for me, I gave my first big cybersecurity conference presentation actually at DEF CON, which was a shock. In fact, I was actually just in university at the time, and I'd written another open source tool called Subterfuge. And we were trying to identify or prove to people that public Wi-Fi at like a Starbucks, really, really dangerous. There's a lot of new defenses that have been put in place, but at the time, this was wide open. And this tool would just passively, you would just click the start button and it would just pull down all of the credentials, all the passwords as people were logging into things. I actually had somebody send me an email of a screenshot of them using my tool with all kinds of real passwords from a university, because they were a student, they just run this in their university. And I'm like, right click on email, mark as unread. Don't send me felonies, please. But so I wrote this tool, right? And I figured this was my like capstone thing for my comp sci degree. And I figured, you know what? May as well just take the outline of this, send it off to DEF CON. Either they say yes and wow, fantastic, or they say no. And they happened to have said yes. I got in front of 1,400 people in that audience. I got so nervous. I'd practiced this thing like crazy, but I got so nervous, I started speaking at like light speed. So I had this timed out perfectly at like the 20-minute mark. I'm 40 minutes deep in where my presentation is supposed to be, and then I lose my voice and start coughing because a lot of smoke in Vegas casinos. And this all on the internet to this day. My shame is, patent proof for everyone to see. And yet DEF CON to this day remains something that is a resume bullet for me. Open source development. Open source is, there's always problems to be solved, and there's always problems that have an inferior solution. And by that, I mean all of the code that I've written, it can definitely be better. And anyone out there could contribute to these kinds of projects. And if it's a project that's really well known, like let's say the Metasploit project, or my testing indexer, for example, has got like 12,000 users, it's called Voltaire. A fair number of people are familiar with it. Contribute to those kind of projects, because then you can get your name out there. And these are all resume bullets too. And yet you're also helping to push the industry forward at the same time. I think that that kind of contribution really resonates with employers, because then they get to look at it and say, oh, you're not just in this for the money per se, you're living and breathing this. And it's really hard to find something that you can live and breathe unless you find out what resonates with you. So I think it comes full scope.
So many great points there. I do have a question, and actually this is to both of you, because Andrew, you do YouTube as well. I was thinking about the conferences in terms of like going there, networking, sitting back and listening to some of the courses and the presentations and kind of getting an idea of what resonates with you, but never stepping on stage. Oftentimes when you are in tech, getting on stage, getting in front of people, speaking publicly is commonly difficult. So what are some suggestions you have for ways to build your resume or ways to show what you're doing in tech if you're not necessarily at the point where you can jump on stage at a conference?
Mm-hmm. Matthew, I'll let you go first if you want to tackle it, and I can follow up if you'd like.
Absolutely. Well, so I think that not going on stage at a conference is actually an effort of multiple steps, particularly if you're talking about your own level of internal comfort. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of events that are happening at conferences that are a bit more ad hoc or smaller. Some conferences have specific stages that are meant for first-time presenters exclusively. And I also recommend smaller conferences for those kind of reasons as well. So B-Sides is a big conference section in cybersecurity. But one that I would also point out, speaking of backdoors and breaches, is Wild West Hacking Fest. That happens 2 times a year right now. It's in Denver in the spring, and it is in Deadwood, South Dakota in the fall. And they have a bundle of different groups and small groups like Sober on Cyber and such that have more small group communication style sessions than like getting up on stage and you've got the microphone and then a mandate to get going. That I think is really challenging for a lot of folks. So getting involved in these smaller groups I think is really, really powerful. At these conferences, one of the things they're trying to do is they're trying to keep you entertained. Participating in the like entertainment games and such they have, maybe that's a backdoors and breaches game amongst friends. Maybe it's a chess match, not necessarily that super cyber, but it's still there. And it could even be something like escape rooms and such. I find that these smaller conferences are really great ways to start networking, and the more friends you have in the audience of your presentation going in, the more confidence that you can have getting on stage in the first place.
Yeah, and I'll echo almost exactly what Matthew said with a few other sprinkles of good tidbits. So I actually just got done talking to a senior in Grand Canyon University that did a really good breakdown of like, you know what, like I'm not an extrovert, I'm not a chatty Cathy, not all of us have Tigger personalities and like to talk to everybody they see. But what she would start doing is she got involved. If you're going very entry to where you're actually going into college, like look for your cybersecurity groups. You can look for any kind of meetups. I know most places are some, like so here in the Valley in Arizona, we have DC 480, we have Toastmasters, which is specifically for folks to get together and practice those small speech, practice like, hey, a short spiel. As well as if you're at the college and university level, you can also make small challenges for yourself. So this student that I spoke with, very similar, where she's not very outgoing or doesn't really want to go out and go meet the entire Microsoft team or Google team, but she's like, you know what, I'm going to go to an event and I'm going to challenge myself to shake one person's hands I don't know and introduce myself. And then the next conference or next meeting she went to, you know what, this time I'm going to go up to 2 different people, shake their hands, have a conversation with them, and maybe ask if I can add them on LinkedIn and connect. The third time they go, they're going to go talk to whoever the main speaker was. And they go, I'm going to go over there, shake their hand, introduce myself, ask them if I can buy them lunch and network, and then work on that communication skills. Another great example I got from Tyler Ramsby, who's now part of Simply Cyber, was make a YouTube channel. Doesn't mean you have to make it public. You can always make it private and practice talking in front of a camera just to yourself or among friends. Share that video among your friends and peers and start working on those kind of soft skills. Show small vulnerabilities you do, show the projects that you build out, and use that as well to kind of build that confidence of being technical and talking about it, meeting and talking to new people. And just like Matthew said, like not being afraid to take a paper and like a call for paper and submit. I'm very excited this year. I'm going to be talking at 2 different conferences because I was told myself, just challenge myself. And I was told by my mentors, like, hey, just submit a paper, see if you get picked. As Matthew said, when he shot his shot with DEF CON, hey, the worst they're going to tell me is no. or they're going to tell me yes, and I get to talk in front of 14,000 people. So yeah, definitely push yourself, I think. And if that's something you struggle with, just talk among friends, professors, other mentors that you have, and just practice, practice, practice. Just like any skill that we've all kind of gained and learned, the more you practice it, the more it's going to be that third arm or that third process where it's just like riding a bike, where it's like a process you can do every single day.
That's a word. What does Bria do with her nails? She does this. Is that is that how she does it?
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool. You hear that, everybody? You need to make sure you're talking to people. And in my best Pastor Aaron voice, come on, somebody, talk to people. Look, I'm just here so I don't get fined.
I think like it's such a known thing with IT folks. Like, not many of us start podcasts, make companies, go talk at DEF CON. You go to a team and it's like there's one person you always talk to. It's funny. I got deemed my nickname when I worked for the state of Arizona was Tigger, because I had such a Tigger personality and I talked to people all the time. And one of my colleagues is like, Andy, the thing I love about you the most is you make me talk 3 times more than I would. The thing that I don't like is you make me talk 3 times more than I would. And it's sometimes making and having that connection with folks, because sometimes you'll also, when you try to go up and shake somebody's hands and introduce yourself, they're the same exact person that doesn't want to talk or meet anybody. And you're kind of pushing them out of their comfort level, which is a good thing, as long as it's not forced. Like, you don't want to just go up to every single person, like just wait for a handshake, like read the room. If they don't want a handshake, say, okay, well, very nice to meet you too. And shift. It's sometimes you'll get folks that want to talk to you, sometimes you don't. And that rejection can also be a part of this learning curve of learning to kind of be extroverted maybe and talking to people. But it's a journey and it's fun. And I think the thing that I get a lot of younger folks inside of getting into cybersecurity, it's not that they don't have the technical skills or the hands-on skills, or they don't know how to code. Sometimes it's just the soft skills they have a struggle with. And that's the question they really ask. Like, hey, how do I network? How do I build my network? How do I go up and talk to these people and make it seem like I know what I'm talking about when I'm just so nervous? And it's just practice. And the more you practice and do those things and do it in front of a mirror, do it in front of a camera, do it in front of your friends that can give you good, honest feedback. Like, hey, you said 55 times, or you said the, and those other crutch words. Getting those small little bits of feedback to really refine a presentation or refine talking to somebody will get you more and more comfortable doing this kind of stuff.
I think something that we don't actually talk about, even you and I, that we don't talk about enough is, realistically, I think people are just afraid of rejection, right? They're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of judgment. They're afraid of all those things. But I mean, it's one of those things now when you get to a level where you're like, I just talk to anybody. I don't really care. I'm not really embarrassed by too much. It's easy to be like, just go do it. Right. But it's one of those things I constantly ask myself, even now as I reflect, I'm like, how did I get here? Because I used to have terrible social anxiety, like terrible. Didn't want to talk to anybody. And now I'm just like, you think what you think. I am who I am. We here now. But I don't know. Like, how do people, at what point did you, Tiffany, get comfortable like talking to people and just being like, whatever? Are you going to say your recruiter days?
No. I mean, I don't know. You're asking me, and I'll go to Toastmasters because it's still just,
Hey.
I'm like, it's still something that sometimes I'm always in my head, whether it's about rejection or whatever. Sometimes I'm just like, the words that I'm thinking are all over the place. And so I'll easily be like, let me just sit over here, because after a while, we about to be talking about something in Canada that, so what point? Yeah. I'm still every day trying to get comfortable just talking to people, and I feel like that's with anything, you're always going to be building skills.
Oh, period.
What about you?
Period. I got to a point where mentally I'm like, your opinion is not bigger than my love for money, so we gonna get through it, baby. We gonna rock it. We gonna get through it, baby.
So funny.
Motivated.
Period.
I've had very similar experiences as well. Like I get on stage all the time to talk, but up until that presentation, I'm nervous, I'm shaking.
Yeah.
Once we start, we're good to go. But like up until that moment, And the more lag time that you have in between these types of events, I think the more that starts to build up internally, and you start to rationalize these things yourself, like, maybe I shouldn't even do it anyways. I'm probably going to mess it up. Well, I don't even know what I'm talking about. I get on conversations with tons and tons of like Fortune 500 organizations all the time, and they might ask me a question or have a topic, and I'm like, man, why am I speaking on this? I'm an absolute charlatan for even picking up the phone. And when it comes down to it, it's just not true, right? Those are all internal feelings that we kind of have. And I think that the more STEM heavy the field is, especially something like cybersecurity, the easier it becomes to have imposter syndrome. And I think that that's something that we have to, like that's a lifelong journey and a lifelong fight. And I think it's, worthy to even like convince yourself, rationalize in the opposite direction. Hey, I'm going to take this fight because I know it's going to be a fight for me, and I want to make it easier in the future.
Ooh.
I will still get nervous to this very day. And you can tell because Jordan, if you look at the red on your shirt, that's pretty much what my face will turn into. I will turn beet red. Wow. And I call it's a ginger defense mechanism. But I think what really got me to stand out when I not too far background, but when I joined the military, I've been in the reserves my full 17 years. I was a military police officer. 10 years down the road, I reclassed into 35 Fox, all source analyst. I was an E6 transitioning into intelligence. Well, 35 Foxes do a lot of briefings to your generals and your command staff on events, reports we write. And when I was in Kuwait in 2021, 2022, I was briefing a 2-star probably every other week. And that's where I really I know, right? I got the same face. I'm like, why do I have to do this? Like, well, you're the staff sergeant. And then I just promoted to E7. So I became like the NCOIC for my intel little section. And they're like, yeah, you're the senior NCO. So you get to talk. I'm like, okay. And the amount of prep and support I had from my junior analysts have been doing 35 Fox work longer than I have because I just reclassed into the role like a year and a half, 2 years in. But having to practice to make sure I was providing good information, talking in front of my peers, talking in front of the mirror, just like I was like mentioning before. So yeah, so like just like 5-6 years ago is when I really got comfortable kind of talking in front of people I didn't even know. Like there'd be random majors and commanders that come in. I'm like, I don't even, who's this person? Like they weren't here last week. I'm like, now more people are going to critique me or ask me questions that I'm hoping I get no questions. Like, all right, perfect. Like, let me know if there's anything further. Moving, that's all. It's like,
it's the drama for me, the drama. Okay, Tiffany has a lot of really good questions, and I saw a note about a demo on there. Ooh, that's about to piss him off. I saw a note about a demo. Are you asking about a demo?
Oh, there was an opportunity to do a demo, but I didn't know if Matthew wanted to do one or not. So we haven't even prepped our producer in the event that was going to happen.
That's why I was like, this is about to piss Anthony off.
Yeah, no, it was just a note.
Yeah, it's all good.
so
here's why. Let's get to that. Here's why I put the opportunity in there for a demo. You recently released a product, Serious Scan, and I would love to hear you talk about like that tool, the product, right? What led you to releasing it? And I think it was a 5-year-long process for you. So just tell us all about like those long nights of trying to get this product in front of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've been, as we kind of discussed a little bit of, I'm a little bit of a open source nerd. So I do like to identify problems or gaps that we have in the industry that are maybe missing, and then try to create solutions for it. And generally speaking, I like to jump off the bridge without looking down. And so this project was not necessarily supposed to be 5 years in coming, but it ended up being a lot larger than I anticipated going in. And so it's been kind of 5 years in the works now, and it's finally getting to a stage where other people can actually use it. What is it? I do a fair amount of incident response. And one of the incident responses that we responded to earlier this year in February was for an organization that experienced, naturally a breach, ransomware attack. But what was kind of intriguing about this breach, and we're seeing this a lot more these days, is that the vulnerability that was used to exploit their firewall from the internet directly in actually was added to the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA's, known exploited vulnerabilities catalog on the 18th of February. And they were reaching out to us because they had been ransomwared by the 3rd of March. So we're really talking about a couple weeks worth of opportunity in order to find the issue, fix the issue, Otherwise, you're paying the bad guys, and you're paying me too, because I'm showing up to try to get the bad guys out. And so for this organization, they weren't necessarily particularly bad or anything like that. They did actually have a cybersecurity person, but they didn't have a vulnerability scanner, because that's a whole extra, license that you have to pay for. And if the way that you're doing your cybersecurity programs, generally speaking, are maybe point-in-time assessments, where you maybe have someone like my team come out and we're doing, a vulnerability assessment or a penetration test, maybe quarterly or even annually or something like that, then there's this big gap of time in between your last test and all of the agency for an adversary to do stuff in the interim. And so either you're spending a lot of money on more licenses, you're buying Rapid7 or Tenable or whatever it might be, in which case it feels really bad to then also be paying somebody else to also, me, to also buy that license and then use it against your organization too. And this just becomes this kind of self-licking cybersecurity ice cream cone. And so there wasn't effectively an open source vulnerability scanning tool that's somewhat simple for folks to use, that has the standard interface, that doesn't require an expert and command line access and all of that stuff in order to be able to scan and identify vulnerabilities. The one that folks are sometimes aware of is actually a fork of the old Nessus product called OpenVOS. It's also referred to as Greenbone these days. And that happened back when Nessus used to be open source, and then they forked off and they started making money. And they left us all behind as a result. And so I kind of identified this missing component of we just need an easy point and click vulnerability scanning tool that can help you identify these critical issues so that you can solve them in the short period of time that we actually have to then take those actions. And that's where SeriouScan came in. So I've been working on it for about 5 years now. It's technically on its third version, because the first version was more of a proof of concept, and I threw away all of the code because it was terrible. In the second version, I'm like, oh, okay, I know a little bit more about what I'm doing this time around, and so I built it. That one actually had some users, because it did actually find some vulnerabilities. The users were able to use it to accomplish more than what I thought the tool itself could do, which was kind of impressive. But that one also ended up getting shelved for the most part, just because as you started to get larger and larger networks, we ended up with scaling problems on the actual tool side. The new one is, so version 3 now, is really complicated. And the reason it's got quite a bit of complexity in the actual tooling is to handle all of the problems and all the learning from the first 2 versions. So things like scale, things like having the ability to search inside of your vulnerabilities if you maybe have tens of thousands of them because you're scanning a really, really large network. Things like agent-based scanning. So in the case of open source scanning utilities, generally speaking, we have network scanners, but we don't have anything that can do authenticated testing. So logging in and then asking questions of the system to interrogate it and find out what vulnerabilities are actually there. And this is a big capability that exists in all of the commercial tools, but if there's no open source opportunity, then effectively we have all of these organizations out there who are just willfully remaining insecure. And if you have a cybersecurity person on staff, or even just a Sierra Hotel IT person who wants to go above and beyond and then try to make their organization more put together than what maybe even their role is primarily focused on, they just don't have any tool options to be able to use and employ here. And so that's what the goal of SeriouScan really was, is to give us a kind of open source and free competitor in a specific space that is causing huge amounts of damages, pain, and suffering to many organizations out there.
How do you stay so tapped in? Because in order to come up with all these solutions, you obviously have to be very aware of what's trending, what's happening. So how do you stay so tapped into what's happening in cybersecurity?
Great question. That's actually one of my biggest fears all the time, is not just, becoming irrelevant, but becoming a charlatan specifically. And we were talking about this in the reverse way, don't let imposter syndrome hold you back. But at the same time, the inverse of that is true too, because you really do have to stay tapped in. Things change histrionically year over year in cybersecurity, especially as we're adding new technologies on. Microsoft has 15 different named products every year that we have to learn, or maybe they're even renamed products. So staying tapped in with all of that can be really, really difficult. For me, I've been exceptionally lucky. So the primary way that I stayed tapped in traditionally was I used to teach for the SANS Institute, and one of my courses was actually on vulnerability assessment. And so what would happen is I'd get all kinds of folks in the class, maybe 20 at a time, from all over the world. I might be teaching in Riyadh or Paris or even just, my hometown here in Seattle or something like that. But effectively what that means is I get a cheat code, right? Because I'm supposed to be the person who knows about everything, but it's okay if you didn't know about what happened the last 3 weeks, you know what I mean? And so if you've got a big group of folks who are coming in and they're talking about those kind of things, they're kind of carrying me along with them, despite the fact that I'm supposed to be the instructor in the room. So for a long time, that was really, really helpful. I still teach, but I don't really teach with the SANS Institute anymore. So one of my huge fears was like, oh man, I'm going to lose this, this crutch, if you will, and I'm just going to be completely out of it and not know at all what I'm talking about. But I have found that just having these conversations as often as possible, as frequently as possible, really helps assist with that. So these days, I do quite a lot of Fortune 500 consulting, in which case you might have like, I don't know, Goldman Sachs or something, and they have a question about identity access management. And I go and I say, I will listen for an hour and maybe learn some things and maybe share some things as well. And I find that to be just a fantastic way to stay ahead of the Joneses, if you will, and to remain tapped in.
That feels like a hot take. Like, how do you stay current? I talk to people. I talk to people. I talk to people in the industry. Like, they keep me. I like that.
I'm not going to lie, ChatGPT helps a lot here too. Before I do like the consulting calls, I always like take the basic ask, I throw it into ChatGPT and I'm like, tell me everything. And then half the time, because you have to be a little discerning, half the time what it tells you is not true and it's not what you want. But the other half the time, you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. I'm going to bring that up in the upcoming conversation and they're going to think I'm super smart.
What's your prompt? What's your prompt and what's your persona?
Oh, good questions. So for this, you mean like the system prompt, the prompt that I put in ahead of time?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, my prompt is so nerdy. So, so one of the things that I did have to do a little bit of in the military when they're trying to train you for leadership purposes, right, is they train you in all kinds of different decision-making processes. And that means that there's a lot of documentation about these decision-making processes that are out there. And so if you call on those terms, the AI is basically going to follow whatever that process was. So if I was coding, I might say, follow waterfall procedures or whatever it might be, do agile coding or whatever it might be. For ChatGPT prompts, you're normally just kind of conversing about a problem or trying to solve a question. And so I went way too like product management professional and like cyber officer nerd on this. So like it says PMBOK, which is the book of knowledge for product management professionals. It says the OODA loop. Use the OODA loop when trying to solve problems. So orient, observe, orient, decide, act. And then it says, follow PMP guidelines and give me a structured answer in the format of the military decision-making process. I want to see COA 1, 2, and 3. And so when it responds back to me, it literally says, here's your first course of action. Here's a second course of action. Here's a third course of action. It is stupendously nerdy. I deserve to be shot for this.
Makes me smile.
It does give me some pretty decent results.
Mine just says, never mind. I'm not going to do it. Go ahead, Tiffany. This is a family-friendly show.
You're so funny.
Oh, man.
With Serious Scan, like, I'm sure you made it something that's pretty modular, right? So you can plug and play various stuff, apps and stuff into it. What was the behind the decision making sure that it was modular?
Yeah, a great question. So I wanted this to be an open source community project as a whole. And I've done open source development for a long period of time. And what I found is that getting other people to contribute to your project is almost impossible. Almost impossible. And so the objective of this was to kind of shard out all of the different ways that you can contribute into the smallest things, smallest contributions as possible. So we're looking for the tiniest little ability to support. Effectively what that means is on the web application side, so the front end's fully modular. So if you wanted to create a new page, you can just tap into the APIs and you can create like a one page that can do anything in, let's say, TypeScript, that's the language it's built in, that you would want it to do. That may be a little bit of a complicated adjustment though. What about the scanner itself? So let's say there's a new vulnerability that comes out and you want to extend the scanner to be able to find that. There's a tool out there called Nuclei, and Nuclei is it's a vulnerability scanner. It's really, really cool. It's by Product Discovery, and it's built on this idea of templates. So you effectively say, hey, look, if the system you're connecting to looks like, and then you describe what that looks like in the template, which is just a plain text document in YAML format, and then it'll try that template out. If it comes back, it'll say, yep, vulnerable, or no, not vulnerable. And so I built Sirius with that same kind of idea in mind. It does use Nmap, so you can create your own Nmap scripts. One of the things that it does is it really extends Nmap. So in the case of Nmap right now, if you download it, you've got the scripts that are built in by the Nmap team, and that's it. If you wanted to have like a fully third-party GitHub repository with a bunch of different scripts, and there are tons of these out there that individual people have made, well, you can't really just shoehorn that into Nmap. But Sirius does. So you can actually go into it and you can just add on an additional repository. Boom, now suddenly you have access to scripts that weren't even in the main repo. If you want to add on your own scripts, you can make your own repository, add your own scripts in. Wham, fantastic. And then on the agent side, the agent's fully custom for Sirius. It actually follows the same exact template system as Nuclei. So if you've ever contributed to Nuclei, and Nuclei has, I think, like 580 contributors or something like that, it's actually a really large project. So if you ever contributed to that, the contributions in the case of the agent-based scanner on Sirius work the exact same way. So you can effectively say, hey, look, if there's a file out there and inside that file it says 10.1.1, then that means it is, Internet Explorer 10.1.1. So you can create basically a template for that. You can also create templates on like hash-based lookups. So if you say, hey, look, if there's a file in this folder and it matches this hash, then that means that it is X and Y version of application. And so it'll automatically trigger and find CVEs, vulnerabilities effectively for that. This is particularly useful, though, if you're not necessarily just a layperson, but if you're like a cybersecurity engineer. Like if I'm doing a penetration test, for example, and I find a custom application that organization made themselves, and I find a 0-day in that application. What if I want to scan their entire environment real quickly to find out everywhere that actually exists on? Well, traditionally, you'd have to make your own little like Python script or your own custom scanner, because you can't really go to like Rapid7 and say, hey, show me the internals of your tool. I want to write my own script. But with this one, you absolutely can. So you can do it on the agent side, you can do it on the network side, all of the above. And what that effectively means is that from a contribution perspective, you should be able to use the tool and contribute within the tool very, very easily. I've tried to make that as lean as possible. There's probably still a lot more work that I need to do on making contribution a little bit more obvious on how you do it. Like I've got this really, really big developer manual. Nobody's going to read this. Nobody's going to read that. So if I can actually make it, bite-sized and more tactical in nature, I think that will help a lot of folks out.
Okay. He created two solutions, one for vulnerability scanning and then one for people who don't be contributing. No, that's what he just. I mean, I'm just saying. I hear two solutions in one. I need the open security pitch. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no.
I wanted the open security pitch because we're running out of time, but I want to hear like your 30-second, hey, this is how I'm going to get my big bag elevator pitch for open security. Like I'm thinking about buying your services, don't know nothing about you. Let me hear it.
Absolutely. We bring military-grade cybersecurity to your private sector organization. No, it's way too cliche. But it is absolutely we do. So we're kind of a family business. We're rather small, but that also makes us exceptionally lean. Most of the folks that are on my team, they worked with me in the Air Force and in the NSA for many years. So what that does effectively give us as a leg up, if you will, versus many of our competitors in the space, is that we've got a lot of experience that you can't just get in the private sector industry, because we might have been working on classified operations. We might have a lot of experience in the background of the specific attack groups. For example, I actually had really random privilege to be able to do an incident response for an organization who got hacked by the North Koreans, a group called Lazarus Group. And I think about a year and a half prior to that, I had been the North Korean battle planner for the U.S. Air Force. So the moment I'm on that network, I'm like, wow, I know exactly who this is, and I know the FBI cell that is in charge of monitoring these guys. Let me give them a call. We can help out immediately. We can get threat attribution and those kind of things going, which is somewhat of a unique value proposition, I would say, that my team does have the ability to bring to the table. We still have a lot of contacts, of course, in the government spaces as well, so that we can use those in order to give you more realistic engagements if we're doing penetration testing, and also to give you more high-value incident response capability if the worst should happen.
Ooh, that's really cool. That's really cool. Yes, I will pay you the $1 million in payments over the next 32 years.
No, that's fire, Matthew. And just like you said, it's something that sometimes I think the military side of intelligence, when all your cyber experts that leave the military come into the civilian world, I know there's a handful of them that when they do that transition, like it's odd that they have such a hard time, and it's probably half because it's the job market. But that's one thing I always try to sell to the private sector. Like when I have some of my colleagues like looking for that new job, I'm like, hey, look, you want this operator or this cyber person on your team, because the amount of knowledge they have outside of like, oh, they have their degree, they have these certifications, they have X years of experience. The federal side is some of the things that we get to touch that sometimes the civilian side doesn't, is light years, and sometimes like just completely different. Now, some organizations that have been hacked by APTs have gotten to work in those kind of situations. I'm not going to try to talk down any of those ones because they've also gotten to deal with those same type of constraints. But that's very cool that you leverage that and you kind of make that kind of like, hey, look, like we're all prior military, which doesn't mean you should hire us because you should thank us for our service. But we've just had a lot of different experience that we get to bring to this table that we're now taking into the civilian side to help places become secure.
Yeah, and I would also suggest that it does help for folks to inspire trust, because the thing is, when you create a partnership between your organization and like a third-party cybersecurity service provider, you're giving them the keys to the kingdom, right? And so there's a fair amount of trust that is involved with that, not just trust that we're going to do a good job, but also that we're not going to break things. One of the organizations we partnered with very briefly, we stopped partnering very quick with them, was another cybersecurity firm, and we were on a scoping call with a client, and then one of their engineers is sending in our team chat that's separate from the customer chat, that he was actively scanning and then testing their web applications while we were still live in the scoping call. And I'm like, this is undisciplined, A, illegal probably, B, and C, we're out, completely out, done, not having anything to deal with this anymore. And one of the things that it's, for better or for worse, there's a lot of pros and cons to, government operations in general. But for better or for worse, there's a set of discipline around how we do operations, specifically because of how high the risks are, right? Like there are people's lives at stake. One of the operations that I was involved with in Texas was for direct combat support in Afghanistan, specifically as it relates to improvised explosive devices and such. And you don't really walk away from that kind of job going, okay, I'm in the private sector now, spray and pray, baby. And unfortunately, a lot of I call kids, but not really, but a lot of folks who just come right out of university and are like, I got that hacker job. This is awesome. Hack the planet, baby. That's not necessarily the thing that inspires the most amount of confidence in an organization, that they're going to be getting, good services, but also safe ones, because we can cause more damages than we fix if we're not doing, our operations properly.
Definitely.
Okay, well, Matthew, a lot of stuff to break down out of that, but you have an instructor's mind. So when I think about that young kid that comes out of college and they're excited about being able to do this hacking and they become a part of your team, like what are some things that you would do to help kind of corral them and help them reshape their thinking around being more disciplined and also able to take care of an organization with their best interests in mind?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I like to pat myself on the back here a little bit. I think we're actually pretty good at that at Open Security because of a term that is going to make everybody mad, and it's super sad: middle management. Because here's the thing: when you're new to the field, there's so many things that can be going on that you have to think about. It's also a very high pressure field. So if you're not getting like active mentorship while you're picking up these skills, they're just not going to go in the right direction. You're going to get frustrated. It's really, really difficult. And everyone hates, bureaucracy, middle management, all of that stuff. But for better or for worse, in the military, we have these things called sergeants. And they do have experience that they're able to bring to the table, and they're able to help corral a lot of that, youthful passion, if you will, and turn that into something that is actively, dangerous in the good way, right? To actually accomplish those objectives that we're looking to do as an organization. And then can help, temper some of that frustration, but also help highlight and keep you moving. Because I see so many folks who get into cybersecurity, they don't have that mentorship level, and they get frustrated, and then they fall out of the industry as well. And right now we have a huge problem, not with new folks coming in, because it's a really exciting job, or at least from the outside looking in. And from the inside, it's also an exciting job if you're not left alone to kind of play with your thumbs. And so I think that middle level is just a layer in cybersecurity that we lack very heavily. And when we don't have it, it's hard to foster more of it in the first place as well. So, kind of look towards the middle. The top, you always have your cyber celebrities and rock stars up there, different organizations. You can probably name them. But they don't matter. We don't matter at all. It's really the middle, and the middle collaborating with the newcomers into the actual field, into your group, your team, whatever that might be, so that you can foster a team that, is more dynamic, right? As opposed to a team that is just topwards directed downwards, in which case nobody's having a good time. It's probably going to be really frustrating, and your flow rate of folk coming in and leaving is probably going to be really high too.
Great. Let's keep going with that. And could you tell me what your ideal future for cybersecurity or the tech space is, just from what you've learned thus far?
Absolutely. Ideal world, AI replaces us all.
I'm taking these headphones off. I'll catch you later.
just voice print real quick. We're good. We generate these afterwards. Yeah, I actually am a little bit facetious, but not entirely facetious. I do believe that AI, like from a cybersecurity perspective, is going to completely radically change the game the same way that Active Directory did 20 years ago, where you now have all of these systems that have inherent trust between each other. And now from a AI perspective, we start to get computers who are talking to other computers and transcribing that communication in like human speech, which is very unstructured. I mean, I don't know if you know English, but English sucks. And so I think that what this is effectively going to do in cybersecurity is it's going to create a wealth of opportunity and job security. Maybe 50 years from now, that might go the inverse direction. But right now, what I'm looking at is just an explosion of more tech being brought online at organizations. And that means more complexity. More complexity means more opportunity for cybersecurity. So I don't know if that's necessarily the ideal future, because what I'm saying is everything's going to get so much worse that you're going to need us twice as much. But for me and my team, that's not necessarily a hellfire landscape as much as it is for everyone else, if you will. And we love testing AI-enabled applications. It's a lot of fun for us, too. So I do think AI is probably going to be that radical technology shift here over the next few years, and I'm here for it.
Is this where vulnerability GPT?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's part of SeriouScan. So one of the things that I was trying to do with the tool is to compete with publicly traded companies like Rapid7 without needing to have 300 people on staff doing a specific job. And one of the things that the vulnerability scanning vendors have is they've got these big databases of information about individual vulnerabilities, what the remediation steps might be for those vulnerabilities, all of this stuff. And they've got a huge team that helps to produce and create these. But if you're making a new vulnerability scanner, well, you've lost all of that, like 15 years of, intellectual property. And Vulnerability GPT specifically seeks to automatically generate that kind of information about vulnerabilities by doing, let's say, retrieval augmented generation, pulling in Google articles, pulling in CVE information from NIST, all of this kind of stuff in order to collate that together and create a full-on vulnerability database that can compete with the big three. It works at the moment. But it's a little wonky. I've got some more work that needs to be done with it. At the moment, when I say it works, I mean it is billing me the ChatGPT hours, but I don't know it's producing the most radically beneficial results just yet.
You said it's working his wallet. That's what
it's working my wallet. That's exactly what it's doing.
I got you.
Okay, well, when you look
when the AI is
forward, when you look forward to your future, 30 years from now, when people who work with you or you trained them or they worked alongside of you, what would you hope that they remember the most about what you contributed to this field? That is
a deep cut right there for sure. I'm at heart an educator, and so there's a lot of things that I've done and worked on, like SeriouScan, that I hope are going to like change the needle in the cybersecurity field. One of the things that Subterfuge was able to do, that was the DEF CON talk, was get Starbucks to secure their Wi-Fi. That's kind of a cool thing to be able to look back and say, hey, look, I did this. That's awesome. But if there were something that I'd want folks to kind of take away, it's what my effect was on their personal private cybersecurity journey and career. So if they were in a class with me, maybe they were in a presentation that I was able to give to them, maybe we met at a bar after the fact and they said, hey, look, I used your Voltaire tool. I used it on 5 different exams. This was amazing. It helped me get the certifications that I wanted to. Can I buy you a drink? I actually had someone in Belgium once who bought me a full like lunch and then like Belgian beer and was like, thank you so much for that tool. It was amazing. Those feelings are fantastic and they're mutual. So if there was something that like folks would in the future take away and say, hey, I remember Matt and I remember him for what reason, I think it would be what effect I've had on their personal cybersecurity journey.
That's awesome. That's perfect. Not gatekeeping, just giving out good information for folks to take in and like build their own career.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. I mean, so one thing that I guess I might maybe find a final question that I want to ask Andrew. So like the one thing that I've been talking to a lot of folks with my mentoring, it's like that golden question of I want to break into cyber, what do I do? And I think you mentioned it. It's such a large plethora of like, well, you want to DLP, DevOps, red team, blue team, GRC, compliance. It's helping people kind of narrow down the field of what they want to get into. But on top of, I guess, maybe like the education, self-taught certification route, do you see in this day and age, I'd say back in when I was breaking through, Security Plus was like your golden entry-level cert to break into cybersecurity. What would you say is like kind of the path now for folks that are trying to break into this industry? Do you think it's certifications? Do you think it's school? Do you think it's a plethora of everything? Do you think it's, hey, build up your projects?
That's a great question. I've got a friend of mine right now who's actually trying to break into cybersecurity, and the way that he's doing it is through the traditional IT route. So you go to IT, maybe you do a little time at help desk. He's done his time at help desk now. Now he's looking to get to more mid-level IT, which from a skills-based perspective means he's picking up things like PowerShell scripting and these kinds of things. And then he eventually wants to make the hop into cybersecurity. And I would say that's probably the most traditional pathway, because cybersecurity doesn't necessarily lend itself very well to entry-level experience. And this is why a lot of folks have so much trouble getting into cybersecurity in the first place. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get into cybersecurity from an entry-level perspective. It doesn't even necessarily mean that you need to have a college degree or whatnot to get into cybersecurity. In fact, my college degree was in political science for the most part. I transitioned to comp-sci at the end, but the comp-sci was less valuable than the poli-sci, if I'm going to be completely honest with you.
criminal justice, so I can totally track with that. Yeah, did not have a degree in cybersecurity when I was working in, so for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, the poli-sci for me was also foreign area studies with China, and that was specifically useful for cybersecurity, much more than the computer science was, ironically. But that's kind of my point, is there's not really an easy on-ramp, because you would think that a university degree, maybe if you're even studying cybersecurity, that would lend itself directly into the employment that you're looking to achieve after the fact. But in cybersecurity, we tend to do most of our hiring based off of experience that already exists. And that's very, cart before the horse, or, chicken and egg kind of situation, is in like, if I need to get the experience to get into cybersecurity, but I'm not in cybersecurity, how do I get into cybersecurity to get the experience in cybersecurity? And for a lot of organizations, a lot of folks, it's, hey, when is your organization expecting its next breach? Because you might just become a cybersecurity adjutant at that point. Hopefully that's not the case, as in like learning cybersecurity with your hair on fire in the middle of a breach. But I have seen a lot of folks make that transition as a result of it. I think that if you want to get into cybersecurity, it really does start to become more of a question of who you know rather than what you know. And that doesn't mean don't do like cybersecurity contribution to open source, because again, if you're contributing to open source, that means you are meeting people in open source as well, and those can be your on-ramps into getting a real job in cybersecurity. Like, I run a cybersecurity company. We do penetration testing, and if I'm looking at your resume and it says, oh yeah, I contribute to the Metasploit project at a regular basis, I'm like, this is one of the tools that we use. You're a contributor to that tool. That's an outstanding, connection that we can then put together. If you want to be a SOC analyst, are you making your own threat detections? Maybe make a YouTube channel about those kind of things. What tools do you have some experience with? There are a lot of open source tools. Can you build your own range? Be passionate. And the more passionate you are, the more that is going to shine through in the actual job interview. Because at the end of the day, if you're not padding the resume with experience, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but that's the easy route, right? If you're not taking that easy, more standardized, slower path, then you want that passion to shine through, because in cybersecurity, everyone is looking for someone who's going to have the staying power to grow with their cybersecurity organization. And that passion is what's going to carry you through there.
Well, this was great. Thank you.
I mean, and Andrew, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask him. Anthony will let us know when he's ready to kick us off, or he'll just mute our mics.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Well, wait. Respectfully, Matthew, do you have time for Andrew to ask you another question?
I sure do.
Okay.
I have one more. So, because I think it's also teetering on my timeline too. And another one. So, the thing I always like to end my channel with is if there was any path. Well, actually, two questions actually. So, Matthew, I'm gonna hit you with these two. When you're not doing cybersecurity and not doing tons of work stuff, what do you like to do for fun? What do you do when you're not cybering?
Okay. If only there were things. So these
what
days,
is time?
What is time? These days, honestly, not much beyond cyber. I've been so busy the last 2 years with the way that the company's been growing rapidly. But I also have a huge problem where I take everything that I would do that isn't cyber and I somehow make it about cyber. It's always about me. And so I do photography occasionally. I like to do YouTube videos. Those ended up, of course, transitioning directly into cybersecurity. I used to have a car project. The car caught fire. Wow. I turned a 1975 Ford Mustang into an electric vehicle. I called it my ghetto Tesla. And the fire happened for obvious reasons. I no longer have the vehicle, but again, everything has to transition to cybersecurity, right? So I've got a vehicle and I turn it to electric. How does this connect to cybersecurity? I had to hack the head unit. So in an electric vehicle, you've effectively got a motor controller that controls the amount of electricity, gets put to the engine, which then gets put to the wheel. And I found a bunch of 0 days in the actual motor controller. So technically, I could have, with cybers, made the fire happen, but the actual fire did not happen because of a cool exploit. That was just me being very dumb.
What is happening right now?
I want to see photos.
I did a full Twitter conversation about it that includes all of the screenshots and images of everything, with the proof that I did get it to drive. Like once, okay, it was a couple more times than once, but like the doors were off and everything, the hood was open, it was an absolute nightmare. And so I'm driving it around and it's clunking in my neighborhood. I see all the neighbors looking at me, they're like, oh man, this neighborhood's going down in a hurry, we're out. But yeah, it was a fun project. I dropped the engine on my hands. I kind of need those for the main line of work, so do not recommend, but it was a lot of fun.
That's cool. That's yeah, man.
Ghetto
I am not
Tesla. Ghetto Tesla. I'm joining X just to go follow that thread.
I tried to make it lighter because these are all like unibody steel and these older vehicles. So I tried to replace a lot of the panels with fiberglass, and I ended up fumigating the entire house when I was doing that at one time. So I'm like, dogs, you guys got to get out. Everything you could possibly have done wrong, I did 3 times over. I put the input shaft and the transmission in backwards, so I had to redo the transmission because it slid in most of the way. And you know when you try to put something in and it gets in most of the way, but it doesn't go all the way, what tool do you use to fix that problem? It's called a hammer. And that was not a good decision. That was a very big mistake.
That's anyway.
That did lead to the fire, in fact.
Well, I guess 2 more questions for you. So we talked kind of briefly on this, but like mentorship and then finding mentors. Do you have any mentors where you're currently at? I'd say you're still very up on the high end of, I'm sure people come to you all the time asking for mentorship and questions, but finding a mentor and giving back when you're at a certain level to become a mentor. What are your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think finding a mentor is finding a mentor who's going to kind of grow with you over time is a very personal challenge for a lot of folks. But I think that the biggest challenge is just not picking up the phone. If you have a mentor already, picking up the phone to have that conversation. If you don't have a mentor yet, legitimately send somebody a message on LinkedIn. We'll say yes. But I think the biggest burden for a lot of folks in starting that process or getting involved there is that they think, I'm going to get rejected, or I'm going to be wasting this person's time, or I don't even know what questions I want to ask. Mentorship is about a relationship. And there are so many folks out there who would love to have a conversation. One conversation doesn't a mentor make, but then, follow-up conversations, maybe a year goes by and then suddenly you've got that relationship. For me, I've had a fair number of mentors in my career. John Strand at Black Hills Information Securities have been a big mentor of mine. Ed Scotus at CounterHack, also a big mentor of mine as well. In fact, I did the SANS Institute Master's Program for my master's, and it was a mentor who directed me towards that. It was Ed Scotus, and he's actually the president of the college now. So all of these things kind of come together, and the more that you are able to kind of not just foster, but continue these relationships, the more that it's going to start to look like mentorship. Because mentorship on day one never looks, feels, tastes like mentorship. It just feels like a conversation between 2 folks who are having a good time. Pair that out over a couple years, and suddenly it looks radically different.
Then last but not least, what would be your final piece of advice for someone breaking into cyber?
Final piece of advice for someone breaking into cybersecurity: get involved. There might be some local events. There might be some conferences. It doesn't mean you have to step on stage, but it is a great place to find people, to mingle with folks. You might get invited to another thing. I've been to conferences in the past where I'm just having a conversation with someone. Maybe I'm not even speaking at that conference. Turns out that they're on a board for a different conference. They're like, hey, look, come to my conference. Maybe get on stage on this one, have a conversation, whatever it might be. But those are only possible if you're out there, not necessarily making a name for yourself, but having these conversations, getting involved. And there's so many ways to do it in cybersecurity, from open source to just, get-togethers at local events. Here in Seattle, for example, we've got a bundle of these, and they always end up going full circle. I know I mentioned earlier on the podcast that an organization is having me interview someone who's in physical security to determine, if he knows his stuff, which he does. But I see him at a local cybersecurity get-together here in Seattle all the time. So he's already effectively in. Super duper easy, because it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, and also what you know. But in this kind of situation, why not double dip? And the more you're involved, the more opportunity you have to do that double dipping.
I'm about to issue a challenge right now. Issuing a challenge to you, Matt, to you, Andrew, and Tyler. You can help them out if you need to. I want to hear a song by DEF CON last day called "Get Involved." Make it happen.
If you've not heard of Suno AI, check it out.
Suno AI.
I'm issuing a challenge. I want it done by DEF CON. We're planning on the next episode of Stats on Stats podcast.
What's it have to be titled? What's the song title?
Get Involved.
Get Involved.
And it has to be about
Involved.
breaking into cybersecurity.
Okay, I will also be at DEF CON, and I guess while we're here, shout out if you're there. I will be most of my time inside of Noob Village, hosted by Josh Mason over at Synac. It's a new village, so they'll be there. We'll be right next to the Dana Initiative, second floor. There'll be some awesome, cool presenters there, bunch of noobs. I would challenge you guys to swing by there if you're there to share your good insight with some folks trying to break into cyber, and just say hi and hang out.
Sounds like a date. I'll be there.
Perfect.
Where will you be, Matt, besides with Andrew?
Oh, at DEF CON?
Yeah.
I'm mostly going to be mingling around. I'll probably be at a bunch of different group get-togethers and events that are at DEF CON. Last year, I lost my badge on the first day, so I didn't really make it around to most of the events. But presuming that I don't have a repeat of that, you'll probably find me just walking around DEF CON and hanging out, chatting to people. I'm not a huge fan of that conference per se, but it is absolutely the best way to see all of your friends that you maybe chatted to online, haven't seen in years, because there's, is it like 24,000 people at DEF CON this year? Probably more than that. It's huge. So if there were a place, my problem with DEF CON is that I love cybersecurity conferences where you feel at home and you can meet new people. At DEF CON, I actually don't meet new people all that often unless I'm being introduced to somebody new by somebody I already know. And that's because DEF CON is such a large conference. And these days, sometimes I'm the person making the introductions if there's members of my team there or friends or whatever it might be. That's probably what I'll be doing at DEF CON for the most part, just kind of chatting with people and trying to meet as many people as possible. But I do find that DEF CON itself is such a rat race of just insanity that it can be rather difficult to achieve. But if anybody sees me there, I am always up for a chat. So,
Facts. Tiffany, do you want to tell the people before we wrap up? You want to tell them where they can find us at DEF CON?
Blacks in Cyber. We are going to be hanging out with them, and also, I think I saw something that said we'll be doing interviews while we're there.
We'll be hanging out with Blacks in Cyber, and we may or may not do interviews. We're not committed to it. But we will be hanging out with Blacks in Cyber for sure. So holla if you see us. But this is the time where I say thank you because we have to wrap it up. But thank you both. Thank you, Matt, for taking the time to share your insight. Seriously, we truly appreciate it. We know time is currency, so we hope you feel yours was well spent and just endless gratitude, truly. And Andrew, thank you for joining us as a co-host. We appreciate your perspective so much. This is so cool. We're so blessed. We really appreciate y'all.
absolutely. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on. And I guess I'll see all of you at DEF CON, at least briefly then.
Yeah, let's go. I'll introduce you to our people. Each other.
Each other. Absolutely. I'm here for it.
Okay, this is a moment where I need to make sure that if either one of you are interested or able to share your information with people who might be interested in asking you additional questions. I'll start with you, Andrew. How can people find you if they have more questions or would like more insight from you?
Oh man, I got all the socials. I don't manage all the socials, but they're all there. I got LinkedIn, YouTube. LinkedIn is probably the best way to talk to me. Just throw me a connect. I'm pretty friendly with my connects. I usually hit accept as long as I don't think you're from an APT or someplace I shouldn't be accepting. It's just my militaryisms of why is this person from Russia trying to add me? I'll do some OSINT. Okay, they're cool. And then all of a sudden I'm getting these weird emails like, hey, we want you to do. I'm like, oh man, what did I do? I made a mistake. But LinkedIn's the best way. So yeah, please, please, please. I love getting to talk cyber. It's something I'm very passionate and exciting about right now, and just getting to give back and get those folks that are thinking about joining this career field, thinking about doing this as a full-time job. It is totally worth it, and I will tell you 100 times why.
Perfect. Matthew, how do people reach you?
Very similar to me as well. Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube are all available for me. I'm trying to get a lot better at LinkedIn, and I'm trying to ditch the Twitter habit, but not been successful just yet. If you hit me up on any of those platforms, though, I'm sure I will see your message, and I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you. If you're interested in getting involved with open source, that might be a great way to break the ice, because I think as we've established, I'm a bit of an open source nerd. So,
all right. And for everyone else who joined us for this episode of the Stats on Stats podcast, we appreciate your time as well. And we hope to see you at the next one.
Stay wavy. You know my Cash App. First name, last name. Bye.